Hello, this is James Hudnall, and I'm here with Chuck Dixon. We're going to talk about comics and writing and a whole bunch of other stuff. Before I start, I just want to say, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to this channel. Whoops. Talk about comics and that's the delay. Hold on a second. It's one of the things. Okay, there we go. Yeah, it's on a delay, so whatever we're saying, the people see it like a minute afterwards or something.
Oh, okay.
But I can see what's going on. I have another monitor, so I can check on that. Okay, so hi, Chuck. How's it going?
It's going good. It's going good. Glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, thanks. For some reason, your icon isn't showing up. It's just going to black screen. I don't know why. Anyway, oh, there it is. Now it's there. Okay, good. So yeah, I understand that I think that you started in comics around the same time I did. I was at Eclipse. I hadn't started as a writer yet, but I was working as a marketing person, and you were starting there around that time.
Yeah, I remember seeing your name about the same time I was getting in. So, yeah, we are contemporaries.
Did you start at Eclipse, or were you doing stuff before that?
I kind of broke in simultaneously at Eclipse and Marvel. Tim Truman got me work on some of their anthology titles, and then Airboy. And right around that same time, Larry Hama started hiring me to do stuff for the magazines at Marvel. So
that's good.
Yeah.
I went over to Marvel pretty fast after I started Espers. I lucked out there because I knew Brent Anderson, so he told me he was leaving his book, Strike for Smart Toys, and so I asked him for his editor's phone number, and I sent him a copy of my book, and he liked it enough to hire me before he decided on a replacement writer. He just hired me, which was great.
Yeah, I found out Larry was looking for guys that could write war and Western stories when I was talking on the phone with Hillary Barta, and he told me Larry was looking for a particular kind of writer, and I was that kind of writer. So I contacted Larry, and he bought a lot of scripts from me.
I wish I had known that. I probably would have went for some of that work, but oh well.
Yeah, if I didn't know about it, I would have been too late to get on board.
Yeah,
that reiteration of Savage Tales only lasted 8 issues. If I had waited till the first one had come out, I probably never would have gotten anything in there.
And you got to you did Airboy, and you're bringing that back, aren't you?
Yeah. Every once in a while, somebody touches me for an Airboy story. But Drew Ford at It's Alive wants to bring back Airboy and have me do basically as if no time had passed the next couple of issues of Airboy following the Eclipse run. So we'll see how that works out.
That's good. So yeah, you've always been pretty prolific and pretty busy, which I envy you for, because I'm not as motivated, I guess, or something. But I guess because I don't have kids or something. But
yeah, that's a big motivator.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I didn't get married and have kids. I intended to eventually, but it just never happened. But I wanted to wait until I got my career to a good place, which never happened for me. So I just never ended up. It's just one of those things. I didn't check off my boxes like some people do.
Yeah, I proposed to my wife the day that I got the regular lead feature in Savage Sword of Conan, because it was a steady 50 pages a month. I thought, well, that's a good start.
Yeah, that's a nice project to be on.
Yeah.
Which publisher was that for?
Marvel? It was Marvel, and it was a royalty payer at the time, so it was good. It was a good gig.
You've done about everything under the sun, as far as I know. You've done Batman, you've done famously. That's probably one of your more famous characters you worked on, which is probably one of the top characters in comics.
Yeah, I mean it's everybody's dream character to work on. I think it's like the ultimate comic book character.
Yeah, I remember when you got that job, because I forget who said it. No offense, I just don't remember, but. I was talking to some freelancer, and they said, "Oh yeah, Chuck Dixon," and I forget the artist, Graham Nolan maybe. They said, "Yeah, they got the job because they just happened to be in the offices that day, and they were." Yes, I forget who told me that, but that was the story I heard.
Yeah, I mean, that's not how that works.
No, I know.
At least it's not how it worked back then. I mean, yeah, Denny O'Neil reached out for me, which shocked me. I never thought I'd ever write Batman. I never even gave it a second thought or even tried. And because everybody tries to write Batman. And he reached out for me to do the Robin stuff because he liked my work on Airboy. He liked how I wrote a younger character. And it just, one thing just led to another, and I ended up doing a whole lot of Batman.
Yeah, I wanted to. I only did one Batman story for Legends of the Dark Knight, which I thought was pretty nice. Brandon Anderson drew it, but it was a character I wanted. I wanted to do the detective Batman. That was what I was trying to do, but I only did one story to do it in, so it was kind of hard. But
yeah, there was a real paucity of detective stories on Batman. I remember when they did Batman Black and White. The only reason I got into that volume was because no one had written a mystery. And they basically assigned me to write a mystery.
You know, it's aside from, I mean, he's basically like, he's a ripoff of many things, but Sherlock Holmes is one of those things.
Sure.
And he's, you know, he's this master detective, but it's one of the more, it's just like when I did Superman, although I didn't do it quite the way I wanted to. I did like 3 issues of Superman too, but, and the unauthorized biography of Lex Luthor, but, I wanted to do a more classic Superman with, unfortunately, I started when Lex Luthor was no longer a scientist, so I had to, you know, work with what I had, which was fine, but I kind of wanted to get into a lot of the mythos and the things that make, you know, Superman is supposed to be smart, but a lot of people don't write him that way.
Yeah.
And with Batman, they don't write him as, they kind of make him smart, but sometimes they don't, you know.
They make him more intuitive than smart. Like there's no real deductive reasoning. He just simply knows things, which to me isn't as interesting.
It's called lazy writing.
Yeah, that's what it's called.
Yeah. That's one of the big things that kind of bugs me about the industry is there's just too many people that just, they're coasting on, you know, they get these opportunities to write these characters, but they waste it, you know.
Well, so many of them are tourists from other medium. And they don't take comics as seriously as, you know, geeks like you and I do.
Especially nowadays, it's really kind of sad to watch DC and Marvel just hire people out of comics that don't care about comics and they don't know anything about comics. Yeah. And their only reason for being there is they want to be famous and they want to. It's just like a cachet thing for them to put on their resume, but they don't really. They don't have anything invested in it. It's not something that they particularly care about. And it kind of shows in their writing, you know, in some cases I find, especially in Marvel books lately, there's just like it seems like a contempt for the readers, which is terrible.
Yeah, almost a contempt for the medium as well. I mean, and plus the craft isn't there. They don't understand the language of comics. It'd be like writing a movie and you've never really seen or appreciated movies. You wouldn't know how to, you know, you don't understand the language, and you know that's the sad statement. They're poorly written and indifferently written, and the simple craft isn't there. They're not even well drawn.
Yeah, they don't go anywhere. The story, you know, and when I was a kid, now I always wanted to be a writer since I was a little kid, but it took me until I was 27 to actually get around to it. But one of the things I noticed when I was a kid, and I wasn't as sophisticated as I am now, obviously, but I really hated, like, I was more of a DC fan than a Marvel fan, although people don't understand what that means. Because the thing is, I feel what I liked about DC is they told a story in one comic. And sometimes they put 3 stories in the same comic and they'd be complete stories. Now, they may not have been the greatest stories or anything. Sometimes they were, but a lot of times they weren't. But at least they were complete stories. Problem I had with Marvel, especially in the 70s, is that, especially when Stan left and there were all these guys doing the books, is that they wouldn't finish their stories. They would make you come back, and then they really wouldn't finish the story. And a lot of times the stories would end with all the characters defeated, lying on the floor, with the villain standing over them, laughing. And that was like almost every damn superhero story in the 70s from Marvel.
It's true. It's true.
It used to just drive me nuts. I mean, even then because I read a lot of books. I used to read like 3 books a week plus comics. So so having read a lot of books, I had developed an understanding of writing from that, and
Right.
not intentionally, just sort of by
Oh
osmosis.
yeah. You just suck it up.
Yeah, and that's how you learn people is you read a lot, and the more you read, the more you learn. But the thing is that yeah, that's one thing. Marvel is sort of like, I think their best stuff was in the '60s. They did some good stuff in the '70s, but overall, not really. I don't know. It's sort of, when I started there, it was in like you say, in the mid '80s, and they wanted people to write like a Marvel style,
Yeah.
which was just a leftover inertia from the way Stan did it, and Stan did it because he had like a zillion things to do, and he didn't have time to, break it out. And he also had artists who could tell the story, so he just, managed it from editing. But of course, everyone has a different opinion about that. But
Yeah. But I mean, the Marvel style or Lee and Kirby method. I always say, well, what everybody isn't Stan Lee and Jack Kirby.
no, absolutely.
And the '70s show, and even into the '80s and '90s when I was at Marvel, a lot of guys are still working Marvel style, and they would give their artist, a page and a half double spaced to work from, and the artist was doing all the heavy lifting. And if and how well or how poorly the story came across was up to how well or how poorly the artist could tell it. And that explains a lot of '70s and '80s comics. Just not good stuff.
My favorite version of the Marvel script is page 3 through 7. Big fight, go nuts.
Yeah. And I started when I started on Savage Sword. I was encouraged to write Marvel style, but my main collaborator was Gary Quapis. And after a couple of issues, I said, I don't know what the hell these people are saying when I get the art back. I'm just going to go to full script. I'm not going to even ask permission. I'm just going to go to full script. And that's what I did for the rest of my time there.
You have to break it down. Otherwise, you're not a writer. If you can't control the flow of the story, you're not writing the story.
Yeah, the only two guys I made exceptions for were Johnny Romita Jr. and Joe Kubert. They didn't want to work full script. And I said, fine. I said, but please let me put in the dialogue in the plot so you at least understand the drama of each scene. And they were fine with that. So that was fine. That worked out okay. I wasn't left with, what the hell are they saying when I got the artwork back?
That's interesting. I was friends with Steve Gerber, and he told me when he worked with Kirby on Destroyer Duck, he said Kirby didn't mind working full script, and he followed the script exactly, which was pretty cool, actually.
That is pretty cool.
Because he didn't need to. I mean, he could have done it himself, but
sure.
Again, he's just traditionalist, and he was fine with that. But Kubert is a master, and
yeah. I wasn't about to tell Joe how to lay a page out.
Right. Well, what I've learned since I started out. I had access to all Alan Moore's scripts that he was turning in when I was working at Eclipse, so I read all the scripts that he had turned in, Mr. Monster and Miracle Man scripts. So, and I was sort of influenced by him in the beginning. Not as bad as him. I mean, his stuff just goes on and on and on before he gets to the point. But I put too much stuff in each panel. But now I've developed over the years a really simple system where I just write what needs to be said, and that's it, and just leave the imagination to the artist. Although I do write it in such a way, I might have like a 2 or 3 sentence description of something in a panel, but I write it in such a way that it hopefully inspires the artist to see it in their head. I try to write it visually for them.
Well, I mean, I learned scripting. Bob Kanigher gave me some scripts. That's a script form I still use today. And basically his script style, too, is only what needs to be in the panel. And it's a little bit of a director's script. I'll suggest close-up, medium shot, long shot, things like that. But I'm open to interpretation. The script's still way flexible for the artist to do what they feel is right.
Yeah, I only do that when I feel it's really critically important because, I don't know, I just trying to get it to them in a way that I try to tell it through description, a real short description in the dialogue. I find that it works best with a lot of people because it makes them feel like they have more room to do something. And I find that artists are usually better at delivering what I asked for when I do that, rather than before when I was trying to be really descriptive. It just sort of, it makes people kind of want to, do something different, or I don't know. But
if you try to be the auteur, the artist is going to buck. They're not going to want to do exactly what you ask, just because you're asking too much of them. But I mean, over the course of my career, I've often worked with artists for whom English was a second language. So the clearer script is always appreciated by them. A director style script, so they know exactly what I'm asking for, and then they interpret it as they will.
Yeah, I've worked with artists outside of the U.S. I started off with English artists, but I worked with Spanish and South American artists, and even French and Japanese artists. So yeah, it definitely makes a difference if you just make it clear, easy for them to translate on Google or something.
Yeah, exactly.
They can just cut and paste the text into Google Translate and get just definite if they don't know it already. But yeah. So what did you aside from Batman, what are some of the other big? Did you ever do anything big at Marvel besides Conan?
Well, I did a lot of Punisher.
Punisher, that's right.
Yeah, Warzone and Journal and his regular book, and Don Daly had me doing things like the Punisher Back to School special, which is unimaginable today that they would do a book called that. But Don Daly kept me really busy during his tenure there, with tons of stories of varying lengths. I mean, I wrote 3-page stories, 4-page stories for him, anything to fill out volumes, because I love the Punisher. So I was always able to come up with some kind of idea for a story for the Punisher.
Yeah, I never got to do him. I would have liked to have done that character. I did a few characters. I wrote Alpha Flight for almost 2 years, but
okay, I remember that.
But that was about it. Most of the stuff I did at Marvel was for Epic, so I was creator owned.
Yeah, I did Moon Knight for a couple of years.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, when he was the emphasis was on him being a mercenary, and in Savage Sword, Alien Legion, quite a bit at Marvel actually.
Oh, so you worked with Carl on his book?
Oh yeah. Archie wanted to bring me on, Archie Goodwin, and Carl read some of my stuff and liked it, and Carl left me entirely alone on that book. He had very little input. As long as I didn't get characters wrong, he was happy. And I was always surprised that someone who created it would give someone as much leeway as he gave me, but he was always happy with what I did.
Yeah, he was my first editor at Marvel, and he's a really good editor. He helped so many.
Yeah, he's a very good editor.
Yeah. Yeah, he gave so many people their start, at Marvel, like Jim Lee and Mike Mignola, and I mean a whole bunch of people started under him, including me.
No, absolutely. He was always looking for new talent, but he was a taskmaster. I mean, you had to get it right. I mean, he was nice about it. He wasn't brutal, like some editors can be, and he was always trying to help you learn to do your job better.
Yeah, he drilled into me that, the theme has to be there in the story. And that used to drive me nuts in the beginning. But, I sort of understand it now. I mean, there's more to it than the theme, but I mean,
I mean, even today, people say, "What's the theme of your story?" I go, "Well, what do you think the theme of my story is?" Because I don't know. I just wrote it. I just made it up. If there's a theme there and you can find it, God bless you.
Well, basically, what he was saying is that the story should have a point, and it should be about something, which I agree with.
Yeah. Some significant change for the character, or some kind of catharsis at the end.
Yeah.
I kind of intuited all that stuff. I didn't know, because Denny and Archie used to talk to me about all that stuff, and I had never articulated about writing before, so I didn't even know how to talk about what I was doing, and they would be able to do that. So I learned a lot of that from them.
Yeah, I read tons of books on writing before I got into writing.
I avoided them like the plague because they always discouraged me.
Well, I find that most people who write nonfiction can't write, and really any kind of book, I don't care if it's nonfiction or fiction, should be good for story. It should be storytelling, should be applied to any kind of book.
Right.
So if you're writing a book on computers or whatever, it should still tell a coherent narrative that you can
Yeah.
follow.
Yeah. Something that makes you want to keep reading it.
Yeah, absolutely. I've read so many technical journals that are so horribly written. They
And
don't.
ones that are well written, I'm blown away by. I'm blown
Yeah,
away by people that can write that kind of stuff and make it interesting. That is an extraordinary talent that I don't have.
yeah. Well, because I work in computers as well as comics, I have written a lot of technical stuff. So I've learned to make it concise and easy to follow and use bullet points and stuff so that it's just, but that's one of the things that I feel people should really understand. If you're anybody watching this either now or later, oh, wait a minute, I got a few messages here. You should understand that storytelling should apply to anything that you write. Let's see. Somebody told me there's no good Riddler story because he's a genius. Most writers are not. Yeah, that's a good point, and that's by Mr. Nean. I was on a panel in the beginning of my career. I think it was with Marv Wolfman or somebody else, and they were saying that a character is only as smart as the writer, which is semi-true. But like a lot of people can't write smart characters because they aren't smart enough to understand what smart is, or how it works. I mean,
Right.
In other words, don't have them do anything stupid, but they do. They write like Lex Luthor doing stupid stuff over and over again. That's the trouble I have with like a lot of villain writers. I mean, to me, villains are really interesting characters to write, and a lot of people haven't done it right until, recent times. But like when I was growing up, they didn't really get into the psyche or the motivations, or besides, Lex Luthor went bald or something. That was his motivation to fight Superman. That was a level of thought that went into it. But I mean, I like to understand like what makes people tick, to make them more three-dimensional, and villains, if they have a shtick like the Riddler, they have some kind of goofy stick. The only way to make it work is to make him super intelligent so that he's not just dumb, he's not just some dumb guy that tries
that's why 11 years on Batman, I only wrote, I think, 3 Riddler stories because they're tough, and I think, you should be smarter than your characters, or at least take the time to make it appear so. Because I worked 2 years on one of my Riddler arcs just to make sure it all worked. So while the Riddler probably came up with his scheme in an afternoon, it took me a while to figure it out for him.
Well, it's like George R. R. Martin says writing Tyrion takes him a long time to write the dialogue. He's his favorite character, but every line of dialogue has to be a gem, so he has to spend a lot of time just working on his lines.
Yeah, that's why, when I wrote The Simpsons, I was writing Simpsons comics, I avoided Ralph Wiggum like the plague because that character is so difficult to write lines for, because they almost all have to be memorable. So I didn't write him very often because for that reason. Yeah, that's like a Joker story. If you write a bad Joker story, it'll follow you the rest of your life. It's got to be a good one.
Yeah, I wanted to do a Joker story, but I've seen so many people do bad Joker stories.
Oh yeah.
And the same thing with Lex Luthor. I always wanted to write a Lex Luthor story, and I did, fortunately, and it was a good one. But I've just seen people mess up that character so much that it just drives me nuts. I've just seen them make the character into a joke,
Well, they make him into a joke, and then the one that irks me the most is when he's telling jokes, they're never funny. I'm like, no, they've actually got to be funny. He actually has to be funny to work. So, you got to put the time in.
Absolutely, and it should kind of, the joke should be kind of make you think or do something creepy, like it's subtle that you don't really get it till later.
Yeah.
Because that's something a genius would come up with.
And a lot of times he's funny when he doesn't mean to be. I mean, I love writing stories where he's either scared, he finally runs into something that frightens him, or he gets pissed off about something. And that can be some of the funniest Joker moments because he loses it. And there always has to be a method to his madness, even if it's a different method in every story, because he's mercurial, to say the least.
Okay, so Lux Max Nike says, who else in the industry is a conservative? Should these people write at all? I don't know what they're trying to say there. I mean, everyone has got their own. It's, first of all, comics is not, overwhelming. I don't know, maybe it is, but I don't think it's overwhelmingly liberal necessarily. There's a lot more conservatives in the industry, but when you say conservatives, it's really a matter of degrees. I mean, like, I don't consider myself a conservative necessarily. I'm more of I just call myself a realist.
Yeah.
And I see the world in a realistic fashion, according to me anyway. But, I am very libertarian on social stuff, but I'm conservative on fiscal stuff, financial stuff. Governments, I believe in limited government and less spending, the better. I mean, it's only because they mismanage everything that they do.
No, the more money they have, the worse they make things. They can't seem to get out of the way.
They're never satisfied with the taxes they get. It's never enough, and they just keep doing it.
But I'm not about to out conservatives in the business, because you can lose your job. But there are an awful lot more conservatives in the business than is generally believed.
Yeah, and there is, and the same goes for Hollywood and other things. It's just that we live in a time which is unfortunately where you're punished for not agreeing with the hive mind, as I call it, or you must be one with Landru, as that old Star Trek episode. I mean, that's where the George Takei is like pointing a finger at Kirk and saying, "You're not one with the body,"
Right.
That was creepy as a kid, and now I understand what that means.
It's certainly more relevant now than ever.
Yeah, it's just that I don't really care if somebody believes in communism. I feel sorry for them, because
we both worked for a communist, Cat Ironwood.
Yeah, absolutely, she was an avowed communist. Her mom was a dyed-in-the-wool commie.
Yeah. I remember her crying the blues to, and I don't even care if she's listening. She knows this is a funny story. She was crying the blues to me that her mother was investigated and all this other stuff. I said, "But your mother was a communist," and she laughed. Yeah, she was. I said, "Well, they should have been investigating her."
And Pat lived in a commune in the '60s.
Yeah. She probably told you the same story she told me. So just insane stuff that happened.
And I actually like Kat. I mean,
I never had a problem. There was a real energy there, and she's a different kind of person. But everybody in comics is a different kind of person, And she encouraged me to do really good work.
Yeah, she actually liked you, and I heard her saying a lot of good things about you when I was there. I mean, she liked your work ethic, and
she didn't agree with anything politically. We would have friendly arguments on the phone, but yeah, she gave me a lot of work and encouraged me to do my best.
Yeah, and it's that's the thing people don't understand. It's very possible to get along with people that don't agree with you. This whole world that we live in now, where you're supposed to hate people that disagree with you, that's just absurd.
Yeah, I mean, I worked with Denny O'Neil. I mean, the most famous bleeding heart liberal in comics, and we got along great. We still get along great, and it was never a problem. And we'd argue, on the off time, we'd argue political stuff, but it didn't matter in the end. It was about comics.
Yeah, that's the thing. I would love to. Well, I'll be honest. It was never a lovey-dovey business. I mean, when I started, there was a thing where there was the indie comics and the mainstream comics, and they were like the people that were in the indie comics world. They had this open contempt for mainstream people. They would sell it to your face, or you would, and it's like. And I always consider myself more of an indie person than a mainstream, because I was more about doing my own creator own stuff. I worked in the mainstream for like 3 or 4 years, mainly just to get to know the business and get my name noticed. But I focused mainly on my own stuff after that. The majority of the work that I've done has been my own stuff, and it still is. But I don't know. But I mean, like, now we've got this kind of political extremists that are basically saying the thing about Comicsgate that a lot of people don't understand is not about all the things that they say it is wrong,
Right.
because they're trying to basically blacklist anyone who doesn't agree with them, including
Right.
people that are liberals in the business. Like anybody who's too old or white, they're gonna try to tar you as well. And that's why you see a lot of scared, middle aging white guys, or even not white guys, but just aging comics pros.
Sure.
They're
Sure.
signaling like crazy to try to not be ostracized by the extremists. But the extremist powers, I think, is not going to last forever. In fact, they can't maintain. It's a really a non-viable option the way that they're running things. They're basically destroying a lot of characters that people have loved for decades, and the sales of these books are tanking, and it goes across the board to other industries like film and books and everything else, where people are trying to just cram this ideology down people's throats, and it's just turning people off.
Yeah. So my fear is that they're going to take the comics down with them, because I mean, eventually the parent companies of the big two companies are going to look at these publishing lines, these loss leader publishing lines, and go, well, why don't we just reprint stuff? Or why don't we just license these characters out? And Marvel's already starting to do that with Star Wars and Spider-Man and some of the other stuff. They're licensing it to other companies to do. And I mean, if that's the future, that's kind of sad if we were to see these two comic book publishing ventures go away and simply become another in a list of licensed properties.
Well, I'm kind of a fatalist. I'm not a fatalist. Sorry, I'm not a fatalist at all. No, I'm a stoic as far as my philosophical bent, and stoicism basically says that you shouldn't be concerned about things you have no control over. So
Right.
I kind of live by that credo, only because it really saves you a lot of pain. Because the thing is, I would like not to see that happen either, but it's sort of like, if it does, it's their fault for letting it happen.
Oh yeah, yeah, and for all practical purposes, personally, it doesn't matter because I'm unhirable at either company. So if they go away tomorrow, it doesn't affect my income or future in any way, shape, or form.
I made that same decision years ago. I decided that it was actually kind of funny. When I was at Malibu, I was at this conference in some, I forget where, Philly or someplace, and I was talking to somebody, and I said, I don't care if I ever work for Marvel and DC again. And then the person I was talking to had this look on their face. So then I turned around, and Paul Levitz was standing behind me. and he like made this smirking face like he does. And the thing is, I really don't care. I mean, it would be nice to get the attention and everything and the short-term gain, because there's no job security in comics. That's one of the things I learned right away is they replace you in a heartbeat if they feel like it, for whatever.
I mean, I went into this thinking if I can get a 5-year window, I'll be happy. And I think I got about a 15-year window, which was good, but I saw, other people, other idols fall before me. This guy used to be really popular and he can't get arrested now. Well, that's going to be me someday. So I'm just going to do the best I can here and hang on for a while. And I'm still gainfully employed as a comic book writer even today after 30 some years. So I'm a lucky guy.
Yeah, just a tip to all you people out there. The key is, as I've said in other interviews, is you have to produce something, and you have to keep producing something, so that you have a track record, and then it'll keep. You can have, as long as you produce something, it's something that eventually it's a library that you can keep making money off of, but it also gives you a foundation of having done stuff, and then eventually builds up, and you will have a career, and but you have to produce. Talking about it isn't gonna do it. And I mean, you're like the best example of that, because you produce more than hardly anybody I can think of in the industry.
Over 40,000 pages of comics. It's about piling the work up behind you. It's about creating a history, just as you said. And that's your legacy. That's what in your silver years. That's what pays off, because they keep reprinting that stuff, or they keep using characters you created.
that's what my intention was to take care of myself in my old age, which hasn't quite happened the way I intended, but it might. The thing is, my stuff is always, I've got a manager, and I've had some success in Hollywood, but and that's not really my biggest goal. But I started out, I wanted to be a book writer actually, and I didn't write my first book until like 2016, was it, or something? The same time your first book came out, or not? Actually, you wrote before that.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Your first Bruno book, I guess, was.
Yeah, I really only turned to that because I wasn't getting comic work. I never had designs of ever being a novelist or a screenwriter. I just wanted to write comics. But I wasn't getting enough assignments, so I thought, well, I got to do something.
Yeah, you have to. That's the thing. You have to create your own work. You can't expect people to give it to you. And then
you have to create your own opportunities.
Yeah, and now you have a TV show in the development now for Levon. Is that right?
Yeah, through Sylvester Stallone's new production company.
Yeah, that's cool. So I mean, if you hadn't done anything, nothing would have happened. So it's.
And if I had worked in comics, because that's how Stallone noticed me at first, was my comic book work, and contacted me about doing some script doctoring on some projects of his, and that never really worked out. But he did get me other work at Lionsgate doing web content and things like that. And when he formed his own production company, he called me and said, "This is one of the first things I want to option." And I'm like, "Yeah, let's do it."
That's great.
Yeah.
That's the thing. You got to produce, and you got to drop out like I did for a while. Like it just happened. Like I dropped out, and I didn't expect it to be as long as it was. It's just life. You get caught up in things, and the next thing you know, it's 15 years go by or 10 years. It's kind of scary, but
it is, because I mean, after I left CrossGen, I had my wilderness years where I was not getting much work at all, which drove me toward the prose writing eventually. But it was lean. It's sitting, every day with the phone not ringing, and no comics to write was a little scary after all that time in the business.
Yeah, that's the thing. The good thing is now there's more technology to make it a level playing field for people, that you can print your own, you can publish yourself very easily. There's just a lot of ways that the barriers that used to exist don't exist anymore. So
yeah, I call it the garage band era of comics. We're all just doing our own thing.
Yeah, I call it artisanal comics, but I mean, it's because it's more like a specialized, like craft beer, craft comics kind of thing.
Yeah. As long as you can find a large enough audience for niche publishing ventures, you're off and running, and it's in the last couple of years, it's done real well for me. It's done real well for others. So
yeah, by developing your name and your work, that carried you over, gives you the impetus to do your thing very effectively, because and
also finding people that are talented at crowdfunding, because that's a talent too.
It is.
Because I've tried it on my own and it didn't work. But when I got with people who knew what the hell they were doing, then I was astounded at the results.
Yeah, by the way, I mean, I want to get to your crowdfunding projects in a sec. I just want to plug my own agenda, which is now on Indiegogo.
It's very cool, by the way.
Oh, thanks. I'm going to put the link in the address, below the when this is over. But it's we could still use your help getting to the finish line. We're at 65%. We just need to, we got till December 22nd. So I really want to, I know it's a tough time to do it, but please help out if you can. But it's myself and Matt Cosson. So anyway, I wanted to talk about your stuff, especially I was curious about working with Arkhaven and the Q thing, and how you had this amazing success on Kickstarter, and then was a Kickstarter Indiegogo? It was Indiegogo. Oh, really? Yeah. And then for whatever mysterious reason, they canceled it like before it was finished. Can you talk about that at all? Well, I don't want to get into the details, but basically what the public knows and what I can review for everybody is I think we raised 200% of our goal. These things usually pay out a week after the campaign closes. The campaign was closed, a week went by, 2 weeks went by, no money. And then they just said, well, we returned all the money to the donors. Hmm.
and we don't have to give you a reason. So
That's scary.
yeah, so Vox Day and through Archaven instituted a sort of a stealth crowdfunder campaign, and we raised twice what we raised in Indiegogo in 2 days.
That's amazing.
So Indiegogo basically made the project more famous, so that
Yeah.
we were able to raise money even faster than we did before. So we're going forward with it, and then whatever's going to happen with Indiegogo, I don't know. That's up to Archaven, because they did wrong. I mean, they had our money and they lost it, even though they gave it away. It was still our money.
Yeah, it's really terrible. I've never seen that. I mean, I understand a lot of people went to Indiegogo because they thought it was more open-minded than
Yeah,
Kickstarter.
more even-handed and egalitarian, but turns out that's not true.
That's too bad.
And it has to be political. I mean, Vox thinks it's something that he said in the Bleeding Cool interview. I read the interview, and Vox can say some crazy stuff, but he didn't. That interview was not particularly controversial at all. In fact, it read more like a interview in Foreign Affairs magazine than a comic book interview. And I didn't see anything in there that would, violate anybody's standards or anything else.
What do you think of Comicsgate, by the way? What is your take on it?
Well, I think it's a label put on us, like alt-right. It's a label put on us by the left. The left seems to think we all live in the same house, and it's like a cabal, and it's anything but a cabal. and I read everywhere that Comicsgate we're supposed to have lists of left-wing creators, and it's like the only lists I've seen are from the left. We're on the right. We don't make lists.
Yeah, in fact, I've seen a list with my name on it and your name and a bunch of other people.
Yeah, I'm at the top of the list. I'm proud of that.
You're number one. Yeah.
Yeah, and then at the bottom of the list is Jordan Peterson. Will someone explain that to me? How is Dr. Jordan Peterson a part of any comic book thing? And what was funny was that in a Facebook thread, Mark Waid thought Jordan Peterson was a former Batman editor. He conflated Jordan Garfinkel and Scott Peterson into one person. So, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I don't. They're the ones making lists, and we don't need to make lists of them. They sign their work in their own blood. Everybody knows who they are.
Not only that, they virtue signal every second how much they hate us.
Yeah,
but yeah. I mean, it's like there's no virtue in virtue signaling, by the way. And also, how is it good? How can we be haters when you're the ones that are hating us 24/7? Because we don't care. I don't care. I don't know or care who most of those people are. No. I really don't. And they can do whatever they want. That's as far as comics, whatever they do. That's fine. That's their business. But I really don't like being my reputation impugned for no reason. Because I mean, I'm just a normal person trying to do my thing.
Well, the irony is that all of their work is political, and very little of the work on the supposed Comicsgate side is political. I mean, I did Trump Space Force. It's very much a parody. I mean, it can be read by anybody. It's not particularly political. It's just ludicrous, And but all the other work that I've done, Avalon and Right Ho Jeeves and the QAnon book, these are not political books.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing that's really it's like they have this ideology, which is the politics is personal, the personal political or whatever, which is to me one of the most offensive things. Because to me, I want politics should not be a driving force in people's lives. It's it's what I call the science of. It's where the elites oh, sorry, I'm sort of spacing here. It's the science of manipulating the public by the elite. Right. It's basically they're trying to manipulate us into doing what they want, and they use politics as a means to do that. And it has nothing to do with anything that people think it means. It's not about this espoused platforms of political parties, because they never follow their platforms. It's just about rich people, powerful people trying to push everybody else around and tell them what to do in their way. And they take a specific tact in order to do that. And that's especially true of leftists, because anybody who's statism, it's just they just want control, and they want to control people through all kinds of intellectual, sub-intellectual arguments, really, that are just meant to you just see a lot of people. It's having both of us have grown up in the 70s. We remember the religious cults back then,
Right.
and all the crazy people at airports waving books at us. Well, that's exactly what the modern day extremists are just cultists. They don't realize it. That's the sad thing, is they're brainwashed cultists, and they act exactly like cultists. Everything they do is just like somebody that's been brainwashed by a cult. And that's disturbing to watch, especially to those of us who know what it looks like.
Yeah, and despite all the colorful rhetoric and everything else, I mean, we're in a very stable political environment. Things don't radically change depending on who's going to get elected. No matter what the cable news stations tell you, we're still essentially the same nation we were under Obama, under Trump. There's no real big difference. And there's no real big division in the country, even though they make it appear so. Everybody should just relax. Your turn's next. Your guy will win next time. It'll be fine.
It really is the enemy. I mean, they're controlled by the elites again.
Yeah.
And they are just telling us propaganda. It's not even remotely accurate. A lot of the stuff that we hear is just complete nonsense.
Right.
And especially the hatred that just endlessly comes out of them about, like they talk about calling people racist, but then they attack one race specifically over and over and over again, which is white people, and they try to blame us for everything that exists.
Well, they'll also attack minority races if they step out of line, and they'll be worse on them than they are on any white person.
Oh yeah, they definitely they really look at Kanye West. He just tried to be, what he was trying to do was he was trying to build bridges, really. Right. With the community and
well, and even I mean, at the bottom of it, Kanye West was just free form thinking. Is he a little goofy? Yeah, but he's allowed to think what he wants to think. And to come after the guy just because he had some different ideas than you, I mean, I'm sorry, that ain't America. We still prize the individual in this country, and Kanye can beat Kanye. Yeah,
and he should be. And it really bugged me that he had to back down because he felt, probably felt threatened or something, because he had to back away from it all, and they just bullied him. That's the thing. They're crazy about bullying people. They constantly try to lecture us about how evil bullying is in the last administration, and then they are like the most bullying people on earth.
Oh yeah, seriously, they'll work behind the scenes. I've had it happen in my own career. I mean, I am on blacklist. I have been for a long time. I always joke that I'm the Jesus of Comicsgate, because I'm the first guy that was called out publicly and basically booted out of the business, and just attacked at every turn, in public and in private.
Yeah, they do. They even commit violent acts against people. Like Ethan Van Sciver he's had to back down recently from Comicsgate just because there's just people like threatening to get him at cons and throwing bricks through windows of restaurants that he was at and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's madness. It's madness. And I have to wonder, where's the rule of law? I mean, that's the most disturbing thing in this era, is the lack of any kind of recourse from the law. I mean, the Oculus guy who was fired from Facebook because he supported Trump. Where is the federal government? That's a civil rights case. I mean, they pretty much admitted that's why he was fired. And all the evidence showed that's why he was fired, because of the contents of his mind. And that should be put down. Put down hard. And nothing's happening.
Yeah, there was a time that a lot of the people that we know, that we worked with, they were liberals, but they had no trouble with us, and we got along, and we didn't get into fights or anything, and they let us be, we let them be, and it's just like these politicized drones that are just for whatever reason they were given a voice by some of the publishers, have given them platforms for their for what they have to say, and they aren't really contributing anything to the discussion. And but for some reason, they're punishing us. We're not the ones who are attacking anyone.
Well, we're
But
not attacking anyone. We're not even taking any readers away from them. I mean,
yeah,
we're mining the readers they left behind. We're not even in competition with them. If anything, we're just picking up the pieces that they've left, of the readers who have abandoned comics, who don't buy their comics. Well, they're buying ours. So what's the difference? You gave up on that audience and we picked them up. No harm, no foul. We didn't do it to hurt you.
yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing. They're going to lose what they built.
But we're not taking it away from them.
No, I know that. And
they're giving it up.
Not only no, I'll tell you what it is. There's like an open contempt by a lot of these people in these companies for the readers. There's an open. I mean, I heard it from them come out of their mouths many times over the years. Like in an oblique kind of way, but they're like ashamed to be doing this for a living and all this other stuff. I mean, some of these people, and it's like, well, you shouldn't be doing it then.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
a lot of people want to do it, and they, it's just sad that it's one of the frustrating things about the industry is a lot of people want to do it and a lot of people love it, but
right.
Unfortunately, the people that get power a lot of the times aren't the ones who should get the power.
Well, they lack an earnestness, and that's the thing that over the years I've realized is more important than anything else. You've got to be earnest about this stuff. I mean, I've worked with grown adult men and women in the comic business for over 30 years who really were interested in making the best comic book they could, and respected the audience, wanted to do their very best work. And I'm seeing less of that now, where it just seems some sort of ironic cosmic joke to the people working on the books. And but you've got to have that earnestness. You've got to believe in your own product. You've got to believe in your audience, or it's not even worth doing.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's what we offer people. If you're watching this, is we really care and we want to do. I'll tell you, and I this is my real agenda, so to speak. Is I really want to create a comic where people are excited about it, and when they pick it up, they're like going through each page and they're just enjoying each page, and when they're done, they can't wait to read the next one. That's the kind of comics that I've read in the past that I loved, and then I would go to this comic store every Wednesday and hope that something like that would come in. But I don't have that hope and desire from the industry. But I want to at least try to recapture that and reclaim it because I think we have the power to do that.
No, absolutely.
Those of us who care, we have that power.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bare bones medium. It always has been. A guy writes, a guy draws, and in some cases, the guy writes and draws. It's pens on paper. It's the simplest form of entertainment you can put together, and that's the beauty of it. And anybody who puts the time in to learn the craft can do it. And if you got a burning desire to do it, you're probably going to do it well.
Yeah, I really. There's been so many great talents in this business. That, and it just hurts breaks my heart to watch people that are still really good and still capable that it can't get work.
Yeah, seriously. There's some awesome talents. There are people out there now at the peak of their creative powers who cannot get a regular gig. And it's sad on writing and art.
It is. It's and we can not even talk about me, but I mean, no. As far as artists go,
you'd be one of them. You definitely be one of them. I mean,
I feel like
your stuff. I mean, you always do a story that's entertaining and fun and well put together. And Larry Hama told me a long time ago. He said, "You hand your work in on time, your stories make sense, and your characters are likable, and they'll never forgive you for that."
Yeah, that's the thing. But here's, I mean, you probably heard this adage also, but when I got in the business, I was told, I think it was by Kat told me this, that the three things you need to be, you have to be two of these three things to be successful. You have to be on time, easy to get along with, and what was the third one? I forget. Reliable, I guess.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you're one of these three things, you can, a lot of people skip the likable part, but I mean, and some people aren't even two of the three things. But I mean, I always tried to be all three, you know, and
Well, Carl Potts always used to say, you have to be reliable, available, and good.
yeah,
That was his criteria.
yeah, and unfortunately, they don't seem to care about that. It's one of the things that I noticed in the '90s. That's kind of when I decided to take a break. Was the industry was like hiring the same handful of writers,
Yeah.
and they were just they had this what I call a self-fulfilling prophecy that they were hot, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And, but they're hot because they're the only ones getting work. And the thing that bugged me was they were always late. Like they were getting all these jobs, but they weren't able to produce on a decent schedule. And they were just kind of writing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, I had a Marvel editor in the '90s call me, and she desperately needed an Iron Man script written by the end of the week. And I said, well, what happened? Did the writer who usually writes it, is he sick or something? She says, no, we have a new writer, but he doesn't have any ideas yet.
Yeah. That's how I got Alpha Flight. Was Bill Mantlo was writing it, and the editors told me that that he couldn't think of any stories, so he'd ask the editor to give him story ideas.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he said, I just can't. I just, you know, I need somebody who can come up with stories. So he gave it to me.
I used to have editors say, hey, if you need help, call me. I said, I'll cut my hands off before I call you. I'll never ask an editor for, not that I hate editors, but I'm never going to ask an editor for help on the creative side of it. If I can't do the story, hire somebody else.
I don't like, to be honest, I don't like what a lot of these guys, their ideas, because I did, when Marvel bought Malibu, I had to, you know, they wanted us to do this crossover thing. And so I told them the idea that I have for the story. And I said, please do not, you know, because one of the things was about this, it wasn't it was an Infinity Stone. That's right. It was an Infinity Stone. The Infinity Stones appear in the Malibu universe for some reason. And I said, whatever, you know, this is what I wanted, that basically this character comes in the position of one of them. I said, but please do not make it so that it just falls in their front yard, right? Because I was just saying to the editor, I mean, please don't recommend that. And that's exactly what the guy did. He said, I won't, just make it simple. Make the Infinity Stone fall in his front yard. I mean, I'm like,
yeah, it's like, who cares? Yeah, who cares?
They just want the most obvious thing that comes to their mind. You know,
I participated in crossovers at Marvel, and this never happened at DC, where you had to write the next issue based on the previous script, right? So you're like, number 3 in a 6-part crossover, and I get the script from the other guy, and the ending would be, oh, there's a big fight. Well, where's it happening? How the hell am I supposed to write the next issue? I don't know where it's happening, who's involved. You're leaving everything up to the artist, and we can't wait until the art is done. The script, I got to write a script. So you would have these disjointed crossovers where one issue really didn't seem to lead into the other very well, and with all different details. I mean, the Punisher might be fighting gypsies in his comic, and then in my comic they're fighting a biker gang. But it's supposed to be the same scene, and that would happen over and over again.
I only did one of those crossovers because I got out of the mainstream. I only was there for one of them, and that was one that John Byrne did, where the villains decided to attack different heroes than they normally.
Yeah, I did a few of them. Yeah.
So I did my Alpha Flight thing. I had the Scorpion fight Alpha Flight, which I enjoyed doing because I always liked that character, and I thought it'd be, interesting to have. But what I wanted to do, this is what they didn't like. They have this. There's a character in Alpha Flight who was a man in a woman's body, Sasquatch. So when he's
right, yeah,
the daytime, he's this beautiful woman, and then when he turns into Sasquatch, he's like this big hairy dude, or hairy creature. But I had it where she's like in her human, in her female form, goes to a bar and just like to relax, and then this guy starts hitting on her, and it turns out to be the Scorpion without his outfit on. and he's like harassing her and stuff, but he doesn't realize that she's a man and that she can change it. But they really hated the whole, like, they thought this was the gay story or something. I just thought it was an interesting twist, you know, to have that the Scorpion doesn't know that who he's dealing with.
I ran into a similar problem on one of my acts of vengeance stories. I had three villains teamed up together, and it was two. I can't remember the woman, but it was Killer Shrike and the Trapster. And I had Killer Shrike making fun of the Trapster. He kept calling him Paste Pot Pete and making fun of him. And I got an editor yelling at me on the phone that you can't mock our characters like that. And I said, I'm not mocking him. Killer Shrike is. Killer Shrike's basically just being a butthead, you know? And, you know, it's kind of like a villain thing, you know, that one of them has to be on top, you know? And, man, they just didn't get it. I had to rewrite it, take out all the insults.
Yeah, that's the thing. A lot of editors don't get when characters are talking trash to each other. It's part of their whole personality.
Yeah, it's like I'm not mocking the character. I mean, Kirby created him, for God's sakes. I'm not mocking him. I mean, but you know, next to Killer Shrike, he isn't as cool. So it just seemed like a natural thing. But you know, that's why I was never mainstream at Marvel. I was off in the Punisher office or Conan office. I was never in the mainstream bullpen.
Yeah, it seemed like that place was really into favoritism and like it
was big on clicks.
Yeah.
And a lot of editors hiring other editors to write books. I mean,
yep.
You know, it was
in fact, when I was on Alpha Flight, sorry?
Yeah, it was a lot of nepotism, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, when I was on Alpha Flight, I was told by Carl several times that other editors wanted my job and they were trying to get Carl to give him the book. And he, you know, fortunately he didn't say no. I left the book. Well, I didn't leave. I was sort of kicked off when a new editor took over and he just decided to put somebody he knew in there. But, you know, that's one of the things is that, to be in your job and then have people every day say they want your job, including fans. I would read the fan letters,
yeah.
And you would have people saying, "I would like to write this book."
Well, I think that's every comic book review ever written. It should just be entitled, "I should be writing this."
Yeah. Oh man.
I mean, somebody told me recently that everybody in comics is afraid of everybody else. I said that's pretty apt, because we're all, you know, freelancers are a cowardly, craven lot. We never know what anybody's saying about us, or we never feel secure. Because the minute you feel secure, they cancel your book or your editor dies or something, and then you're out in the cold again.
What's amusing is those people who feel secure because they're some kind of star. They don't understand that in the real world, nobody knows or cares who they are. No. I mean, fortunately, the more grounded people that I've talked to that understand this, they're cool. But I mean, a lot of big stars that they just think I do this book and therefore, you know, get out of my way, and it's hilarious.
Yeah. And the thing is, you know, you're working on characters that are 60, 70 years old. It's like, you're not the first one. You're not going to be the last one. You're not going to have the last word on this character. And in some cases, you know, Steve Ditko had the last word on this character. So good luck with that.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the other thing about the reason I didn't want to do mainstream comics too much is because I would rather do my own thing and create my own characters. I was inspired by people like Jack Kirby, who created new things. He didn't just keep doing the same thing over and over again. He would come up with another thing and another thing. And that was what made comics exciting to me as a kid. And to see everyone just rehash other people's stuff and then change other people's ideas to suit their own personality over and over and over and over again, that just drove, you know, it didn't appeal to me. I when I did other people's characters, I felt really responsible about trying to give them, and that's what I did with Outflight. I tried to bring it back to what Byrne's vision was, even though he just tossed it aside. Right. But I wanted to make it in his original vision as close as I could. But
that's what I would do when I would take on a book. I would think, no, this isn't mine. It's you know, it belongs to the readers. So I've got to write this book in the way the readers have come to expect it to be presented. So I was always, you know, very respectful of what had gone before me. and because that's the job to me. It's not to completely reboot it and reinvent it in my own image.
Yeah. And well, that's one of the things I noticed is a lot of these guys would, when they get a book, the first thing you do is try to just destroy everything and make it their own little statement about whatever it is that they wanted to do.
Right.
And so they try to just make it so that they're like a pharaoh from ancient Egypt trying to erase the history of previous pharaohs or something.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. They're trying to make it their book. And it's like, well, it's never going to be your book because it was around long before you. And you just have to find ways to create the illusion of change to keep the material fresh but stay within that framework. And too many writers will try to like alter, long-standing continuity for like the sake of one story. It's like, no, it's not your job. That's not what you were brought on to do.
Yeah, and the other thing that was kind of amusing back in the day, it was actually very helpful in some ways, but they used to have these things called fill-ins, and the companies they needed writers to do these fill-in stories, and it was like free work, basically. They needed to stack up these fill-ins in case a book's late, they could just grab one of these fill-ins and put it into place.
Yeah.
And so I did a few of those, and it was pretty fun. That they don't do that stuff anymore.
No, I used to write my own inventory stories. I remember the day that my editor assigned a Nightwing inventory to another writer. I'm like, whoa! I write my inventory stories because I've never missed a deadline, and I'm never going to. So at least let me write the story. Because it'll be collected somewhere else eventually. But yeah, I mean, that was a great way. Well, that's like the Iron Man thing I did. It was a fill-in. It's the only Iron Man story I've ever written. And they constantly reprint it because it's a rarity. It's a 22-page standalone Iron Man story, so it gets thrown into trades all the time.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I don't think any of my fill-ins got used, which is kind of a shame because I did a couple that were kind of fun to do. Oh, I did a Daredevil Power Pack crossover, and it's kind of weird, but it was actually kind of fun. They actually came to me with the basic idea, if I think, but it was during that time when there was a lot of used needles washing up on the beach in New Jersey or something, and so I wrote a story around that. Yeah, it was a useful thing. But the thing about the industry is, for us who now we're the old timers, but I love talking to the old timers about the business, and you hear a lot of interesting stories about how it was, and now we're in that position, but it's changed a lot, from the very beginning, obviously, and it'll change even more. But I really think that we're sort of in a transitional phase where it's not going to be the industry, the old guard that we grew up in, as far as the direct market industry. I think it'll be something else in the future. Some direct market people will manage to survive in some fashion.
Right.
But I really don't think it's going to continue because Marvel and DC, especially Marvel, seems to be dead set on just making it impossible for people to make a living doing this.
They seem dead set on extinction.
Yeah. Yeah, they're either too proud to see it, or they really are trying to destroy it. One of the two.
Well, I mean, a lot of the people I see at Marvel making decisions, they're from other areas of publishing, which I guess they'll just go back to that when the horse finally dies under them.
Yeah, some of the open hostility of those people. I mean, I don't even know these people, but just reading their tweets, they're so openly hostile to the fans. And
the only thing I know about them is they hate me. I don't know what did I ever do to you.
Exactly. I mean, it's like they don't like being questioned or criticized. They have this huge mad hatred for Zach or Richard Meyer, Comics and Diversity guy.
Oh yeah,
he's just a guy who bought comics and criticized them because he paid for them. He spent money for these books,
right?
And he has every right to criticize them if he doesn't like them. That's all he was doing. but they decided to demonize the guy and try to destroy his career, his budding career. You know.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that was dirty work at the crossroads. Just not. And again, his work isn't political either.
No, he's very fair-minded. His criticisms are not mean at all. If he likes something, a Marvel book that's by an SJW, if he likes the story, he'll say so. I've seen.
Yeah, he's criticizing craft for the most part in the videos I watch. And it's like, well, that's constructive actually, and he understands again the language of comics.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, he definitely. I mean, he'll say good stuff about stuff I wouldn't say good stuff about. But I'm not the kind of person. I don't go out of my way to criticize other people's work because I know how much goes into it, and some people it's hard for them to even do something, and so I'd rather not rain on somebody's parade. But he has every right as a critic to do that. But now he's a professional and he's doing his own stuff, and he's managed to do pretty well so far.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is good. I really think that he's set a good example of how we can kind of move this ahead. Without these people. These people can just keep crying all they want and complaining, but they're not going to stop us from doing what we want. Let's see. We got to wrap it up here, but somebody asked, they say newsstand will make a comeback. I don't know about that. That's a very interesting thing, but newsprint is making a comeback. A lot of people are doing newsprint comics now, which I'm not doing in my first comic, but it's something to consider. Because
I think newsstand could come back if they rethought it, but nobody seems to be rethinking it.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's a very messed up business. I mean, back in the 80s, it was very corrupt and mob run and all this other stuff. So, but I'm sure it's a little different now. But it's very complex, hard to make money in this day and age. Somebody asked if either of us have met Joe Statham. No, I have not. I've chatted with him on Facebook, but I've never met him.
Oh, Joe Statham. Yeah, I've met him a number of times. Good guy. We've worked with him a few times as well. Yeah, I met him back in the day when I was a fan, and Joe would never sell or trade original artwork. And through a fan in England, I got a hold of a bunch of Frank Bellamy artwork. And Joe opened up the portfolio for that. He traded for Frank Bellamy pages.
Yeah, his great artist, Bellamy.
Yeah, yeah. And Joe, too. I loved working with Joe. I was on Guy Gardner with him for a short while until our editor decided that Joe was over. Guess who's still in the comic book business? Joe. I think that editor is managing a bookstore in Seattle.
Yeah, that's the thing. These guys, they make these weird kind of decisions about people that I don't know.
It's based on nothing. And Wizard Magazine, I used to hate Wizard Magazine because they would use that to inform themselves. And it's like, these are all arbitrary decisions by a room full of geeks. You know, these hot lists are meaningless.
Yeah, that's the thing. They were huge at one time. A lot of people may not even know who they are now, but they were really big at one time. But it's sort of like the mass media of today. It's telling you what's true and what isn't when they actually don't know what truth is.
Oh, yeah. It's like I was reading the other day an article about Netflix and the show they have with Jane Fonda. They found out that if they put Jane Fonda's picture up on the online service, no one clicks on it. So if they put Lily Tomlin, they get plenty of clicks. So it's like, okay, there's your reality of who's famous, who's popular, and who's not. So
Lily Tomlin, that's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. People would hit on if Lily Tomlin was in the picture, but they wouldn't hit to watch it if they saw Jane Fonda.
Yeah, well, she's, I mean, she burned her own bridges, and
the point is, Netflix has the real numbers. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
There's no PR agent nonsense there. They have the actual numbers of what their customers want, and it ain't Jane Fonda.
Yeah. You'd think they'd have learned from a lot of other mistakes they've made. However, I mean,
no, because I'm looking at the films coming out for Christmas. There's a movie about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And there's a movie about Dick Cheney. I mean, seriously, they really think they're going to make any money off them?
Absolutely not. I mean,
yeah,
that's the
absolutely
thing.
not.
we're going to do these political movies that nobody likes being lectured to or preached to, except fanatics, and they're a small group of people in comparison to everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, Robert Redford spent the last 30 years making political movies that nobody ever goes to see. You know, just wasting his Hollywood, you know, influence on crap that's not profitable. I don't get it.
It's like a lot of people they feel good about themselves by making some statement that they're basically just preaching what other people told them is true, which isn't true at all. But they're told that it's true, and if you're a good person if you repeat these lies, basically. So they all hang out in the same circles and they convince each other that they're right. It's like, you know, group thinking, echo chamber stuff. And it's just, and the thing that's really infuriating about that is, you know, Hollywood especially would spend millions of dollars on stuff that nobody wants. And aside from politics, they make a lot of movies that nobody wants. And you wonder, like, what were they thinking when they came up with this thing? I mean, there's so many movies, like, you know, back in the early 2000s, late 90s, there were all these quote unquote comedy parody movies that were made by the same people, and they were all terrible. And they were supposed to be a parody of a movie that came out last year. It wasn't great to begin with. And there was just like, they came out with like 20 of these things, it seems like. It's ridiculous. But they made them cheaply enough that they made a profit, I guess. But
yeah, they kept the numbers down. But I mean, you know, I read a thing by David Mamet. He said the only reason any movie gets made is because eventually it gets handed over to the craft people, you know, the set designers and the rest, you know, who work for a living. And it just gets its own forward momentum from there, you know, because otherwise they wouldn't be able to get anything done. And that's why you see the crap you see on the screen, because no one's really thinking about it. And then it's handed over to professionals who turn it into a full production. And there's no one there to say, stop, this is a piece of crap. So. And those people all want to have their job. They all want to have their salaries. So they just keep on working on it. You know, because he said if it was up to, and he included himself, he said if it was up to writers and directors and producers, this stuff would never get done. But eventually it gets scheduled. And it takes on a life of its own.
You know, the funny thing is, speaking of conservatives, a lot of craftspeople are conservative in Hollywood, which is, you know, they're the ones that actually don't like a lot of the politics that goes on in the industry.
Yeah, so, I mean, but they want their days. So, you know,
absolutely.
Shut up and go along.
Yeah, they have to work and put up with it.
Yeah.
Which is sad.
Yep.
Well, anyway, I gotta sign off here, but it was a great talking. It was really fun, and hope we can do it again.
Oh, we absolutely will. I enjoyed it, James. I really did.
Thank you. I appreciate it. This is again, please subscribe to this channel, Esper999, and check out the links that I'll put down below for agenda. And is there anything you want me to pitch on there? Any links you want me to put?
I just put my name in on Amazon.
Okay.
Page after page of stuff will come up.
Yeah, same here. Not as much, but I still got lots of stuff. All right, great. Well, I'll talk to you later.
See you later.
Take care. Okay, where's my cursor? The problem with having two monitors. Okay.